Jimmy Hyams, who's nice enough to join us, brought to you by our friends at Varner Ford. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
Dave, I'm doing great. Hope you are as well.
I am, and you sound better. I know that you're a little raspy with the sinus infection, and goodness knows I can empathize there. Is grandson Orion going to dress up for Halloween, and what will he be?
He is going to dress up for Halloween. He's going to be, I'm trying to remember, my daughter mentioned it. He's going to dress up like one of those scary creatures from a Halloween movie.
Okay. Caleb is going to dress up his dog. Do you think that's weird?
I'm not choosing to. My wife wants to, and it's not a battle I don't want to fight. It's not a battle I want to fight.
Jimmy, you seem like a guy who listens to reason, but sometimes the man has to lay down the law, right?
Sometimes, but this is not a battle you want to fight.
Thank you. True. My mother always told me, pick your battles.
That's right.
And this is just not, this is one I can lose, and I'll have it in my back pocket for the future. Because then when we have another fight, I can be like, well, hey, I let Sirius wear the stupid costume you put on him.
Yeah.
That's how I win our next argument.
Sirius is the name of his very stern dog. Today's tough question is now, and it's brought to you by our good friends at Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones. Other attorneys say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Jimmy, what is the likelihood that Tennessee misses the college football playoff at 10-2 in your mind? Because I said right before you came on, in face value, a 10-2 team should be one of the top 12 teams in the nation. But we know about the automatic bids. We know that Tennessee's schedule is nothing to brag about. So what are your thoughts on Vols 10-2? Do they make it?
I think it's less than 50% that they would not make it. Okay. So I'm saying it's better than 50% that they will. And the reason I say that is I just don't know how many 10-2 teams are going to be out there. I don't know how Tennessee's strength of schedule is going to stack up against the rest of the field. But here's another thought too. If Tennessee's 10-2 and they beat Georgia but lose to Vanderbilt, I think that enhances their chances, because then you beat Alabama and you beat Georgia. And if you beat Georgia, well, if you lose to Vanderbilt, you're probably not playing for the SEC championship. But if you beat the number one ranked team in the country and you beat Alabama, which has been ranked in the top 10 most of the year, I think that's stronger than losing to Vanderbilt and Arkansas. Now, I don't know how the committee would look at it, but I would give you props for that. And by the way, Vanderbilt's pretty good. So, but at 10-2, I don't think it's a guarantee, but I think it's a probability.
Okay, so Jimmy, let me ask you, thinking about that, let's say Tennessee goes chalk, which is losing to Georgia but beating everybody else. And for the record, on throwing the hypotheticals out, I'm kind of with you. I think it's insane to assume that the rest of the season is going to be chalk when it hasn't been chalk to this point. But let's say Tennessee does. And say hypothetically Alabama just collapses in November, which is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And they finish 8-4. Don't you think that puts Tennessee in how much trouble do you think that puts Tennessee in then when their best win is against an 8-4 Alabama team?
I think it puts them in more trouble. And the thing that's hard to do, Caleb, is comparing them to everybody else, because we don't know. Is Penn State going to go 10-2? Is Ohio State going to go 10-2? Indiana's undefeated. Are they going to go 10-2? I don't know everybody's strength of schedule right now. And sometimes when I look at the strength of schedules, they're giving you the strength of schedule up to this date. And so they don't always factor in the last 5 or so games of the season. So it's hard to compute that. But I would say it would hurt Tennessee's chances if Alabama ends up 8-4, and that's the best win you've got this season.
Okay, something that was brought up on our message board, and this to me, it would be a no-brainer if not for what happened in 2022. And that is there a chance Alabama, let's say they right the ship and they go 10-2. Is there any way that they could make it over a 10-2 Tennessee team that beat Alabama? That That sounds absurd, but in 2022, we know Alabama was ranked ahead of Tennessee despite the head-to-head.
Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? I'm going to say probably not. Alabama's going to get some credit, even though Wisconsin's not great, but they're going to get some credit for going to Wisconsin and getting a win. That would be better than any non-conference win Tennessee has. So that would help Alabama. Alabama also beat Georgia. So that's another feather in Alabama's cap. So without knowing what everybody on the committee is thinking, is there a chance? Yes. Now, obviously, you can point to a year ago. Texas beat Alabama head-to-head. They beat Alabama at Alabama, and Texas was seated ahead of Alabama in the playoffs. And I thought that was the right thing to do. I would have trouble, and I think the committee is going to have trouble because I think they do put a lot of stock in head-to-head. So because I think they put a lot of stock in that, I think Tennessee would be ranked ahead of Alabama, but I guess I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama's ahead of Tennessee.
Here would be my reasoning why that wouldn't happen now and would happen then, or did happen then, is that Alabama had the Nick Saban thing, and let's face it, him being in the playoffs. It is a television show, as I like to remind Caleb a lot, and having a star like Jack Nicholson or Nick Saban in that is a factor. And Alabama had the panache as well, but I don't think they necessarily have that anymore, Jim.
No, I don't think so either. Without Saban, I'm trying to remember a year when Alabama got in just because of Saban. Do you remember a year like that?
No, but I think that would have happened in 2022. I think shooken out.
Okay.
I mean, can you say the rematch in 2011 with LSU? Does anybody other than Saban get that shot at a rematch? I mean, I'm not saying that Alabama didn't deserve it, but that's. I think if you flip the coaches, Mike Gundy and Nick Saban, I think Oklahoma State's in the national championship game despite that Iowa State loss in 2011 to go play LSU.
Okay, so that would be an example. Yeah. But to your question, Dave, Alabama doesn't carry the weight that it did when Saban was there, I wouldn't think. And I just, without knowing the committee's mindset, I don't know how much it would play into it, but it's certainly possible. I'd say this: if Alabama is ranked ahead of Tennessee, and both of them are 10-2, and Tennessee beat Alabama head-to-head, then that theory wouldn't hold, would it?
No. And go ahead, Caleb.
Sorry, there's another factor to this, though. And I'm going to go ahead and state the blasphemous on the show. But if they both go 10-2, even though Tennessee gets a head-to-head over Alabama, isn't there an argument that the gap in quality wins for Alabama should still have them outweigh Tennessee's? Because Tennessee will have the Alabama win. Jimmy, you brought up Alabama will have the Wisconsin.
No,
hold on. Let me finish. You brought up Alabama has the Wisconsin win and the Georgia win in their cap. If they finish 10-2, they'll also have a win at LSU in their cap at that point. And you guys can hate on this all day, but if Vegas gets it right, Missouri's going to finish the year 10-2. That's a quality win. So Alabama's got 4 quality wins. At least 2 of them are better than, and Tennessee's got 1 at that point. If they both go 10-2, it's 4-1 in quality wins. At that point, you have to make the case that outweighs head-to-head.
No, and they very well might.
I mean, you can hate that,
but Jimmy, if you're on that committee, and by the way, I looked at the committee members. You deserve to be on that committee more than at least 9 of those people. And that's no exaggeration. Out of 12, I mean, a couple of people I didn't even know. But Jimmy, if you were on the committee, what would outweigh it, head-to-head or strength of schedule?
Okay, if the strength of schedule for Alabama is 10th in the country and Tennessee's strength of schedule is 60, I'm taking Alabama. Yeah. If the strength of schedule for Alabama is 30 and Tennessee's 35, I'll take Tennessee. So it depends on the difference of the strength of schedules. Because if Alabama has 4 quality wins and Tennessee has 1, I would lean toward Alabama.
Particularly when Tennessee's win over Alabama was in Knoxville.
Right. Okay. But if that's the case, you've got to, in my opinion, I don't want to go overboard on this thing, but I think you've got to write in rules that a head-to-head trumps. I mean, they've got that in the SEC championship game qualification rules. Head-to-head would trump. I mean, Trump on near election day, but you have got to have that in there, in my opinion, Jimmy. I respect where you're coming from, that the strength of schedule, if it was vastly different, which it may end up being, would be significant. I just can't go so far as to take away the head-to-head. And I wonder if that's something that the College Football Playoff Committee would look at, or if they like having control to get the best television show on TV.
I don't know the answer to that, but they do weigh heavily head-to-head, but they also weigh heavily strength of schedule. So I think it would be an interesting proposition for them. Here's the thing. Tennessee doesn't want to be in that position. They might be, but they would like to take any doubt away, and they control their destiny. If they win out, there's no doubt. If they go 10-2, there is going to be some doubt about whether they get in. Again, I think if they're 10-2, they're going to get in, probably, which means better than 50-50. But I would not want it. It's almost like leaving a call up to an official on pass interference.
Oh, yeah.
I do not want an official deciding whether that was or wasn't pass interference.
Or leaving up a Hail Mary to the Chicago Bears defensive backs.
Yeah.
Jimmy's appearance is brought to you by Ray Varner Ford. Varner Ford in Clinton, a very short drive. We love Ray Varner Ford.
XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
All right, Caleb, I know you had one more on this topic. What do you got? Because we're going to move forward here.
Yeah, so Jimmy, and guys, I just wanted to throw this out on the scenario and why this is trouble for Tennessee. There's Georgia, Texas, and Texas A&M could all get into the playoff over Tennessee because they could all theoretically finish 11-1 to 10-2. That's from the SEC. From the Big Ten, you're looking at Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. I haven't even brought up Indiana yet because their schedule's pretty bad too. But let's just take Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. You also have Notre Dame that, as an independent, right now is on track to get into the playoff. And the reason I think this is scary for Tennessee, guys, is that's 7 teams right there I just named that could finish 10-2 or better. And the Big 12 and the ACC champions are automatically going. And Jimmy, I would just want to add, the way things have shaken out in those two conferences, you might end up getting 2 Big 12 and 2 ACC teams. And I just put the number of playoff teams at 11, and there's only 11 spots available for Power 4 teams. I want to know your thoughts on that.
It narrows the gap, doesn't it? It casts more doubt if you're 10-2. And I think there's a very good chance the Big Ten is going to get 3 teams in, including the conference champion. The ACC is going to get 2 in. I think Miami and Clemson are going to be in. And that narrows the field for the SEC. I have felt for a while the SEC would get 5 teams in, but I'm not overly confident about that because there are going to be some other teams fighting for it. And I do think there'll be multiple 10-2 teams that are going to be battling for this spot. So, and then you get to this thing that's called style points. And I know that I've been told this, that the committee, once it's the margin's above 27 points, they ignore it. It doesn't matter if you win by 27 or 57. They ignore it. So if you got a 40-point lead, there's no sense in scoring another touchdown because the committee doesn't pay attention to it. I wouldn't, if I was on the committee, pay attention to you adding on a touchdown so that you win by 47 instead of 40. But I will be curious to see how many teams tack on a late touchdown in an effort to get, quote, style points in this race for the playoff.
Or, I don't know, how about an onside kick?
Yeah.
I mean, that's there's the other side of style points, though, which is the politics of this, which is that ESPN has the contract with the SEC and that Tennessee is a big draw. And, you know, if it's down to like Tennessee and Indiana, for instance, and it's a tough battle, even if Indiana technically has a better resume, come on, they're going to take Tennessee guys, right?
just for the record, Jimmy asked the question of Nico Iamaleava after the game, and which was it, the Florida game that they went for it on their own end, Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. You asked the question, and he didn't remember the play. And he said, did we get it? And Jimmy was nice enough to say, well, according to my notes, you got it. So congratulations. And Jimmy, my question is, the more surprising of the two plays, the onside kick, was that against Kent State?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Onside kick against Kent State, or Tennessee going for it on their own, I believe, 10-yard line?
I think going for it on your own 10 because there was more at stake.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything at stake on an onside kick. That was just a silly play. But, boy, that's a roll of the dice going for it on your own 10-yard line. So, to me, that was more surprising because the game was on the line.